Hi there, Soul Speaker. Thank you so much for signing up for this free masterclass on speaking with soul. I am so excited you're here. I hope that you settle in. You're going to need a journal handy or like a pad of paper and a pen because at the end, we're going to do a meditation and automatic writing exercise. But for the time being, welcome. You're in the right spot. I'm excited you're here. And while you're watching, maybe start to gather your journal and a pen. I'll remind you a little bit later. But if you're here, I know it's because you're struggling, maybe a little, maybe a lot with public speaking. And so I'm Dr. Megan Raquet Fisk, and I've been teaching public speaking for over 10 years at universities all over the world, and as a speech coach for heart led entrepreneurs and leaders, coaches, healers, all of the people like yourself. And I'm so excited that I get to spread the message to you now watching this. So, what we'll talk about a lot today is how you speak from this place of flow, how you find that voice inside of you where speaking becomes easy. Right? It's not this big, scary thing that only some people can do. Speaking really can be easy when you're speaking from this flow state or from your soul, whichever way you want to look at it. And so, what do I mean by this? Let me dive into that in just a second. But I always like to add a little disclaimer at the top that takes the pressure off of me and off of you. I am not the best speaker in the entire world, right? And you don't have to be either. What you need to do, especially as a service provider, an online entrepreneur, or a leader trying to get your message out there to the world, is you have to show up and share your message. And we'll talk more about this with our mindset piece in a second, but really, it's okay. You get to start where you're starting from and you share your message and you speak your truth. So I set that expectation at the beginning so you can see that you don't have to be perfect. One of the things that I absolutely love being able to do is being able to speak with just a couple bullet points and not having a full script. So I have no script. I have a couple little bullet points for what I want to share with you all about flow state. And I really want to demonstrate for you what's possible when you train and when you practice speaking from this place of flow, because it really does make speaking so much easier and your audience will connect with the vibe that you're putting out so much better. So let me talk about flow state as we're diving in here. So flow state, I think the best description of it is actually in the sixth Harry Potter movie. I always mess this up. The sixth Harry Potter movie. Harry is trying to get Professor Slughorn to talk about, and ask him what Voldemort shared with him. And so he's in his office, and Slughorn explains to Harry, he's like, oh, yeah, this hourglass, it moves quickly if the conversation isn't interesting and more slowly if the conversation's interesting. And that slow, drop of sand in the hourglass moment is the epitome of flow state. And it's the epitome of speaking from flow state because time stops, right? It's almost like being outside of yourself and seeing from the eagle eye view on top of the room, and also feeling the audience's emotions and really connecting at this deeper level without fear, right? From this deep place of connection. And so it's also this total absolution, right? Like you're not fearful, you know what it is you're going to say without having to consciously think about what it is that you're going to say. And so a lot of musicians, athletes, you've probably experienced flow before. If you think of a time, or maybe it's even in your own work now, where you get so excited and so into the work and know that you're living your purpose, that time just stands still and you look up and like 5 hours has passed and you're like, oh man, okay, gotta go on to this next thing, right? That is what flow state is all about. And being able to speak from flow does quite a few things. And I'm going to share those benefits with you and like why we want to speak from a flow state. And let me tell you. So, first, it's because you don't have to read off of a script, right? Like I'm looking at my bullet points, but I don't have a script word for word. We call this rifting. And one of the things I work with my clients on as a speech coach is really diving in and getting to know their stories well enough so that then they can start to play around with them. So, let me share a story with you right now off the cuff. One of my greatest hit stories, if you will. And that's when I experienced flow in the flow state for the first time and became aware of it while it was happening. And so in high school, I was on the high school dance team. And now, like, let me set the stage for you because this was the biggest thing that had ever happened to like 15-year-old Megan. So I had been doing gymnastics since I was like 4. I started doing ballet in grade school and hip hop and jazz. And I never got that into tap. I didn't really like hip hop though. And I'd have, the big yearly recitals and all of that through grade school and junior high, but it was separate from the little town I grew up in central Illinois. And I really wanted to be on dance team, but no one even at my school knew that I did that much dance like my close friends did. But my school was also really tiny. And so only 4 8th graders got to be on the dance team. And so I was one of the 4. It was like life-defining moment. And then I got given a solo for the dance competition during the summer. It was like a dance team, like a dance camp. Imagine Bring It On cheerleading camp, basically the same thing. High school self would have hated that like comparison, but you get the idea. And so I had this solo where I was doing frotte turns, and that's the one where like your leg goes out and then it comes back in and you're spinning. And I had always just been really good at turns and balancing. And so I could do like 15, 20, no problem. And the song was It's Raining Men. And the It's Raining Men, hallelujah. And I don't know if you know the song that well, but at the beginning, there's kind of like Mother Earth talking and like a storm's kicking up because it's about to start raining. And so I was Mother Earth spinning and making the storm start to happen. And we had practiced this dance for months. And like every day, right? And I always nailed my turns. Like I could just do them, It was just something I would practice and practice and practice. And then it came time for the performance. And this it's all quiet. There's probably 500 people in the audience between all the different dance teams that were there and everyone's parents and the whole thing. And our music comes on. I hit the first couple notes. I go into the turn and I can tell my balance is off, right? Like I'm either about to fall or in that moment, time literally stopped, right? Like that eagle eye view happened where I could see myself, I could feel my body mechanics and know that I just needed to step up into my big toe a little bit more. And I was able to rebalance myself and do what I had practiced, right? Stick my leg out, do the turns. And about, turn 5 or 6, because that's when it starts to get impressive, all the audience is just getting louder and louder and cheering. And it's like their energy keeps me going. And I spin and I spin. I land it. I turn around. And then the rest of the song kicked in and everyone else like came in with the dance. And it's just such a moment where I knew I was in flow, right? Like I knew that that moment had happened and that I felt invincible, right? Like energy was just coursing through my body. It had been the moment I had basically practiced for my whole life leading up to that, right? And that flow state is possible during speaking, just like it's possible for like performers of any sort. And that's why today I really want to share with you the 4 ways that you can tap into flow whenever you need to and show up and connect with your audience and feel that connection. Because from that connection, and this is our second benefit of why we want to speak from this flow state, is because that connection is how our audience is inspired, right? It's how we motivate our audience to take that next step, to, in short, change their lives. And I truly, truly believe that there is not any way to change the world other than changing one person at a time. And what I mean by that is changing one mindset belief, one limitation that someone has put on themselves, helping them see the world in some other way. And if you can change one person's mind, then you've changed the whole world. And I know it seems ridiculous, but it's what I talk about all the time, is because one speech really can change the world. And I know that's true because it's happened in my life time and time again. It's happened in my friends' lives and my clients' lives. I'm sure it's happened in your life when you can think back on that one thing that maybe a teacher said to you once, or maybe a fellow coach said, or that TED Talk that you listened to, where, oh, right, just like that, you saw yourself, you saw your world in a whole new way. And I want you to be able to facilitate that change in your audience. And I know that speaking from a place of flow and with this ease and with this confidence is how you go about doing it. And so speaking from flow is actually a lot easier, right? Like, you don't have to write out the whole script. Of course, you need a structure and you need a framework and you need to know what you're going to say. And that comes from a lot of practice. And once you've reached that like threshold, like I know so many of you watching this have, right? You're experienced, you know what it is you're talking about. You're just not necessarily having the confidence and not knowing how to tap into this flow state where things get easier. And so the last thing that happens is that we become not nervous, right? All of that anxiety, that nervous butterflies in your stomach energy, it's still there. And I'm going to explain to you why it's not a bad thing that it's still there, but it doesn't become a problem anymore. It's not something that you have to overcome before you can be a great speaker. I'm going to teach you how you actually harness the power of your nerves to speak clearly, speak with your soul, speak with ease, speak for that connection. And so at this point, I'm sure you're wondering who the heck I am, right? I've been up here chit-chatting away. Let me tell you just a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to share with you the 4 ways that you can trigger flow state while speaking and build that connection with yourself and with your audience. So again, thanks for being here. I'm Dr. Megan Fisk, and I think the first thing you need to know about me is I am the epitome of a Gemini. I equally love woo-woo and science stuff, right? Like, I have a PhD in organizational communication. I've taught college classes for more than 10 years on public speaking, leadership, training and development, basically any communication class you can think of, small group communication, all of them. They're all so fun. And I equally love chakras, tapping into our energy, playing with tarot cards, like what's on my wall. My dog ate the rest of the tarot cards, a whole other story. But I love working with energy and I love communication. And I really think that a lot of that comes from just the time in which I was born, right? So Gemini is ruled by the planet Mercury, and Mercury was the messenger of the gods. I've always loved communication. I was not always good at it, but for my astrology friends out there, the other astrology related thing you should know about me is that I'm a Libra sun and moon rising. So I love helping people. Like, I love being of service and caring and really providing that like softer, more feminine perspective on things. So funny story is I have 4 older brothers and I'm the youngest and the only girl. And so growing up, no one could actually understand anything that I said. And you might have realized by now, you might be like, oh, she does have like kind of a Midwest accent, or maybe I said some word with an R a little funny, whatever the case might be. And that's because no one understood anything I said until like second grade. So I had one best friend from like kindergarten to second grade that could understand me. So I shouldn't say no one could understand me, but very few people outside of my mom and my brothers could understand me. And I did a lot of like speech therapy classes and learned at a really young age all about communication and was fascinated by it. I remember being in kindergarten and being like, maybe this is something I want to learn. Like this could be a way of like getting what I want. It's figuring out that communication piece. And it's really given me a perspective on how we communicate and how we use our influence of our voice to get what it is that we want and what we know would make the world a better place. And so bring all of that up because then naturally it was like I always was on target to study communication. And I did my bachelor's in communication, political science, and linguistics, then did my PhD. I started my PhD looking at counterterrorism efforts and like how societies fall apart, which then led me to want to know, well, like, how do we actually build societies and keep them together? And so from there, after I finished my PhD, I did do some community organizing, worked in the nonprofit sector while I was still teaching classes, and really developed more of the communication role within nonprofits and universities. So I had the honor of writing speeches for the university president and for people within my nonprofit. Quite a few of my friends ran for political offices and I'd write speeches for them. But then I always felt like something was lacking. And I thought that lack was that I wanted to maybe like work in the State Department or do something in international development. So I packed my bags, sold everything, and did Peace Corps for 2 years in Kosovo. It's a small little country in Europe. Like, imagine where Italy is and Greece and kind of like go up and in towards there, and you get to Kosovo. And while I was there doing international development work, I had the privilege of doing Gabby Bernstein's Spirit Junkie Masterclass because my life got so still and so peaceful living in a country that has really the bare necessities, right? Like you don't get all of the frill of America, the consumerism and like capitalism that exists in America doesn't exist in Kosovo. And so it's kind of like me and my Peace Corps friends joke that like Peace Corps really prepared us for COVID and for understanding what being home for so long was going to be like, because that's what Peace Corps was like for us, is what was really this like quieting down and getting really sure of who we are. And I mean, I know for myself, this is how I use the time. And so Spirit Junkie Masterclass was really an amazing experience and showed me how many teachers, healers, spiritual wellness, health, however you want, heart led folks are out there in the world that have such an amazing message that I don't think gets heard often enough. And it's like, sure, I could be writing speeches for ambassadors or for politicians or for Fortune 500 CEOs, like that makes a lot of money, but those aren't necessarily the people I feel like whose message we need right now, right? We need leaders like yourself to step up and say, hey, I have this really cool tool, practice, thing that I can teach you. And let me show you so we can raise the consciousness and raise the vibration of the world. And that's the big vision that I hold when I think of the work that I do. And so I chit chatted a lot about myself, and I hope that you get to know me more by following me over on Instagram or joining my Soulpreneur speaking community on Facebook, where I share more. But let's dive in now into the 4 ways that you can speak from this flow state and talk effortlessly to your audience. So the first way, number one, is you have to change your mindset around 4 beliefs, right? So let me tell you what these 4 beliefs are. Take a drink of water first. If you haven't grabbed a journal yet, make sure you got a journal handy. So way number one, right, is these mindset shifts. And the first thing is really changing how you're viewing that butterflies in your stomach feeling, right? Or if you're still saying things like, I have to overcome my nervousness, or I'm just not confident enough, I need you to stop and I need you to make friends with those feelings. You have to make friends with fear. So Elizabeth Gilbert's one of my favorite authors, and she has this really great quote about how fear and creativity are conjoined twins, and you can't have one without having the other. And I know that that is so true. The second that you cut yourself off from fear, you're cutting yourself off from creativity. And our throat chakra, which I'm going to talk more about in a second, but it's right here. And it's all about communication and creativity. They go hand in hand. The way we express ourselves and the words that we use, because see, words are just symbolic representations of the ideas in our brain. And I find it so fascinating that if I was to describe a pen to you right now, and I was talking about a pen and going on, but the way you see a pen could be totally different than this pen that I'm talking about, just to throw it out there, right? Like the way we use language is creative. And the words that we choose to describe things represent the way our brains are structured, and they help form the neural pathways in other people's brains. So there's the sapphire whorf hypothesis that even shows, and it's been demonstrated in fMRI studies time and time again, that people who speak different languages, their brains are structured differently. Like think about someone who grows up in Arizona and only calls things snow versus someone that grows up in Alaska and has 500 words to describe the different types of snow, right? Huge change. And so, anyhow, creativity, right, is what we want and what we need. And to be able to fully express our creativity means that we have to make friends with our fear. And so I'm going to share with you a couple exercises for doing that throughout. And it's why we'll do the meditation at the end, which is really step one in making friends and overcoming our anxiety around that feeling of butterflies in our stomach, or our heart pumping fast, or maybe our throat starts closing in and our palms get sweaty and we turn bright red. All of those things are things that we can start to work with instead of working against. And the second you lean in and listen to, like, hey, why do you feel unsafe right now? Why is my face getting red right now? Is it that, am I embarrassed by what I'm saying? Or how can you, and this is where things get so fun with the chakras, is how can you move the extra energy? Because that's really all nervousness is your body creating energy to help you share your speech, right? And so, how can you move that throughout your body to open up your throat chakra and truly speak from this place of flow and heart? And the first thing you have to do is make friends with your fear. And so, over on my website, I've got quite a few journaling exercises and like more material. And I'll put the link down below if you're watching this from my website. And you'll be able to see like some other techniques you can do, because I know it's like, oh, okay, make friends with my fear, Megan. How am I supposed to do that? And I'll give you some hints throughout. But one of them, this number 2 mindset shift you have to make, is that public speaking is a skill, just like any other skill that you didn't necessarily start with. Like, you weren't born being able to tie your shoes, but now you're like a tying your shoes master, right? And so it's shifting from this fixed, like, I just can't do it, to having a growth mindset. Okay, I'm going to I'm going to do this live, and it's just going to be what it is, right? Because the other thing, the third mindset shift I want you to have, is that you're speaking from a place of being of service. And this is where I think a lot of us get it wrong in the online space, especially, is that we're speaking to sell someone something. We're speaking to get something, right? We're like, okay, if I go on and do these like 3 lives, then that's going to be 5 new clients, or very transactional approach. And instead, I want you to have the mindset of how can I serve my highest good through this speech? What is the one truth that I feel in this moment that I know that my audience needs? Right. And so, speaking from a place of service and having that mindset also makes the fear much more comfortable, because it's like, oh, wait, the stakes aren't that high. I just have to encourage someone or inspire them or speak my truth, talk about this thing that I am so passionate about. And it doesn't matter if it's not perfect, right? We're not about perfection. We're about doing the work and showing up for the audience that needs us and for our clients that need us. So that's why approaching it from service is going to be so much more beneficial for you. And then finally, at some point, when you're getting ready to do your speech and when you've practiced it, when you have all of the pieces together, then you surrender it, you stop practicing, and you say, it's in the universe's hands, right? If you pray, if you higher power of your understanding, whatever the case might be, I encourage you to, if you haven't done that work, to do that work and know who it is or what it is that you believe, so you can truly surrender it to a power greater than yourself. And doing that is going to give you the confidence and the power behind your voice to speak your truth without the fear of, and like worrying about either the judgment of other people or your own self-critical thoughts. Like, I promise you, if you're able to truly surrender the outcome and approach your speech from this place of service, you won't have public speaking fear, right? You'll be able to feel the energy through your body like I am right now and work with it to deeply connect with your audience. So those are the 4 mindset shifts that I know work for being able to tap into that flow state a lot more readily than if you're still holding on to some of those other beliefs, right? So let's talk about number 2. If you're ready, the second way you can tap into flow whenever you're speaking is to make sure that you're constantly stretching your limits, right? So a lot of the positive psychology researchers, flow state's been studied by psychologists since about I think like 85, but 1990 is when most of like the papers got published and it became a much bigger thing. But there's tons out there, like look at Psychology Today and look at flow state. To talk about it. And what we know is that you have to be struggling a little bit. Like, it has to be something that is somehow challenging for you, and you have to have a high skill set. So another thing might be if you're really struggling speaking and you're just getting started with your business, you might not be ready, right? It might be more that you need to refine and work on your craft and know what you're coaching by either taking like clients pro bono or getting a couple more degrees behind you or some certificates or something, because I find this a lot, frankly, is sometimes coaches that aren't the most qualified are coming and then they're like, oh, I don't know what to talk about or what to say, that type of thing. And that's a very different issue and not one that I'm particularly suited to help with. You need someone in your subject area to help you develop that depth of knowledge. But if you know that depth of knowledge, that's where the fun happens, right? That's where you get to be creative and think, okay, how can I say this in the way that's going to meet my audience where they're at? And then continue to push yourself. And so you can push yourself in 3 main ways. First is creatively, second is technologically, and third's authentically. So the first way you can really push yourself creatively is to try out new things in your speeches. So one of my goals in 2020, hopefully COVID's over, eventually someday and I can actually go and do it, is I really want to do stand-up comedy because it scares the bejesus out of me. Like, I think I will stand up on stage, and I've spoken in front of like 10,000 people before, right? Like, I've done a lot of speaking in my day, but there's something about having to try and be funny and like tell jokes and like a small audience too. I don't know. The whole thing just gives me chills thinking about it and makes me a little like fearful of it. But I think there's so much power to doing these things that we're scared of and stretching our limits because it gets us even deeper into our flow state. And so, what that might look like for you is maybe you're trying to do something like taking this new approach, or you're going to try out a couple new stories, or you're going to just mix up the structure and what it is that you're saying, or technologically, what pushing the limits might look like is trying out some new streaming software, right? Like, I go back and forth between StreamYard and Lightstream. Um, and I'm constantly like, even get some OBS action going. OBS is not great to use, though. It's not very user friendly. But I really like usually talking with some slides behind me to have my main points so I stay on track for you guys. But I really wanted to do what I preach, right? And tell you guys how you can riff, and I'll explain it at the end. But technologically, and then finally, authentically, sharing deeper stories about yourself, revealing more information. Because I'm sure you all have heard this before, is that people are more likely to buy when all things are considered equal from someone that they know, like, or trust. And I think a lot of people forget that first part, that like all other factors are equal. So that is the precondition for all of the research that backs up that know, like, and trust claim. But let's dive into that. How do you build like someone knowing you and trusting you and liking you? Doing videos like this one, where they get to see you, where they get to hear your stories, where you reveal information about yourself. That's like the whole basis of interpersonal communication. Like, how you form friendships is through self-disclosure, and through how people like you is we like people who have things in common with us, right? When I say my dog ate my tarot cards, you guys are like, yeah, I've been there. That's happened, right? Or you're like, oh man, I would like, my dog would not be in a good place, right? Or whatever the case might be. When I talk about being a Gemini, when I disclose that I have 4 older brothers, like, all of these things are authentic to me, which is what we're talking about here. And it's self-disclosing information. So you really get to know who I am. The one word of caution I have about being authentic is sometimes we're, it's just our culture is, if it bleeds, it leads in newspapers and in the media. And we really have to, as service entrepreneurs, be really conscious and know that it's not our responsibility to share like deepest and darkest truths with just anyone. And so if you find yourself trying to write posts or trying to share stories that you're not quite ready to share, or you just are doing it for like that shock value, let me tell you not to. Like, our audiences want us to be real and to share at the level in which they know us. And so it's very different than if you're at like a workshop, or maybe even doing a masterclass like this, or something where like the audience knows you a little bit more, to start to disclose those secrets and to disclose them when you're ready and when you can speak about them in a way that's truly going to be of service to your audience and not more of like an emotional burden on them, right? So that is our second way of tapping into flow, is constantly stretching our limits, trying out new things, and making sure that we're challenging ourselves while we're speaking. So let's talk about our third way. And real quick, before I do that, I do want to mention that if you're like loving this and you're like, yeah, like, how do I stretch my limits? How do I tap into this place of flow? And how am I going to be able to do it and not freak out about it, right? Because that freaking out totally happens. I remember one time speaking and I was so aware that I was in like a flow state that then I like messed myself up because I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, feel the energy in my body and my mind. And then I became hyper aware of what I was saying. And then I lost my train of thought and like got red and was like, oh, what was I talking about for a second? So you want to make sure that you're practicing being in this flow state. And it's why I host and founded and created the Soul Speakers Academy, which is a 10-week program where you get to practice the 5 speeches that every entrepreneur needs to succeed. And if you're interested, I'll post some links and you can get more information about it. But I'd love to have you, and we really practice speaking from this flow state so that you can more deeply connect to your audience. And that connection translates into making more money in your business because your audience knows, likes, and trusts you. So let's talk about this third way, right? And the third one is really all about creating your pre-speaking ritual. So every time before I jump on a live, before I recorded this masterclass, I do the same series of things to get my body, because flow state, like psychologists have learned over the years, is a physical thing, right? Like how we know we're in flow state is there's 5 chemicals that are actually released in our brains. And so we can start to train our brains to do this. And part of that is establishing this routine. And if you've ever looked at and like read interviews with elite, like think Olympian athletes, like they're very mindset focused and very much routine based. They know what they're going to do. So here's a couple routines that I have before I speak that you might like too. So first one is very traditional. And I actually learned it when I did speech and debate in high school. And so it's doing vocal warm-ups. So like I said, again, our throat chakras, they need to be warm. If you're not speaking and using your voice before you get on stage or before you go on live, your throat might feel like it's closing in on itself, right? So before you do this, before you speak, make sure that part of your pre-speaking ritual is some sort of way of warming up your vocal cords. So it could be some singing warm-ups. Here's some classic speech and debate ones. The first one is you say each of these like 10 times, and they're tongue twisters. So red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. Unique New York, unique New York. She sells seashells by the seashore. I always have to look at that one because I mess it up. It's like too many S's for me. And then this other one, I don't use it as much. I really use the red leather, yellow leather in Unique New York. And she sells seashells by the seashore because that one trips me up every time. But if 2 witches were watching 2 watches, which witch would watch which watch? Just say that one 5 times fast, right? And so whether it's these phrases or other phrases that you repeat to yourself and really like get your vocal cords warmed up, doesn't much matter. You just want to use the same ones every time and warm up your vocal cords. The next thing that I do is some neck rolls, right? I drop it down, I roll my shoulders back a couple times, sit up straighter in my chair, that sort of thing. And again, it's just loosening up my body. Sometimes if I'm feeling a little low energy, I'll even like put on a song and dance around. Then I do play a song, which I'll talk more about in a second, that I've really worked on in visualizing the entirety of my business and what I do as a speech coach and how I show up for my audience. But the last thing I do right before I go live is I take 3 really deep breaths where I fill up my stomach first and like actually expand my stomach out, and then my lungs, and fill up all the way, and then exhale my lungs, exhale my stomach. So it has that nice wave pattern to it of going up and down. And so I'll do that 3 times. And sometimes when I click the live button, because you know how Facebook now, the new interface, you can't quite tell that you're live yet. You'll see, like I'll still be taking a deep breath, but I think I've got it fixed now. Anyhow, let me tell you more about this visualization and meditation part, because this is really the fourth way that you can find flow. And because the thing about this flow state that I've been talking about is it's a muscle that you have to build, right? I've mentioned the importance of practice again and again in this masterclass, because like I was just saying, like if you just get on live and expect, or get on stage and expect to get into the flow state, if it does actually happen, you're going to be freaked out the first couple of times and be like, what is happening? Or like, this is so cool. Now what do I do? And so you want to make sure that you're ready and you know what to do when you feel that energy in your body, so you can work with it and keep going. And so the main way I know how to do this is through visualization and meditation. And so if you haven't found your journal yet and got a pen, really now's the time, because we're almost to the meditation part and closing us out here. But first I wanted to talk about like the visualization technique that I do. I use a song that is kind of like a yoga, got a very like cool rhythm to it, called I Am Thine. And it's about 9 minutes long. I've been listening to it just about every day for about a year now. Um, and it really the song matches the energy that I want to bring to my lives. I think that's step one to picking like the song that you're going to use. And then step two is making sure that it's long enough that it gives you time to really sink in and see what your visualization is. And so there's lots of ways of building your visualization. And what has worked for me is imagining how I want to feel when I'm on stage and when I'm doing lives, and imagining all of the comments and the people's faces that I'm working with and helping through my work as a speech coach. So think through that. Think through if you've got an event that you want to do, or maybe your big speaking goal is actually to give a TED talk, or maybe it's to host a retreat. Think through and like keep that as the visualization that you're working with, and do it every day, every couple days. And you have to do it for an extended time, because you're literally reprogramming your brain to release those 5 chemicals that induce the flow state. So your brain knows what to do when you're on that TED stage. Does that make sense? Feel free, send me a note. I'll be sending you some email follow-ups to this video. So send me a note. Let me know what questions you have about the visualization component. But if you're ready, real quick, before we jump into the meditation, I want to invite you to work with me. And the first step to doing that is to get on a free 30-minute Speaking with Soul strategy call. So I have a 4-part framework that I use as a speech coach and as the founder of Soul Speakers Academy to help you construct speeches that are going to inspire audiences and get you paid, because that's important. So what we've been talking about today is actually the first S, all about the soul, right? How we become more confident, how we tap into our flow state, how we open our throat chakra. All of that I loved speaking about and building our confidence. So then we're ready for this next step, which really is planning the strategy that's going to work for your business and work for you when it comes to speaking. Do you need to be doing a podcast every week? Is that what your business model is? Or is it something that you just do 4 times a year? How many times are you going live? What are you actually saying in your lives? Like, what is your core message? What is your signature speech going to be? What transformational stories are you telling about yourself and about the clients that you've worked with? Really getting clear on that strategy. And so that's what we start to do on this free 30-minute call, and seeing if we're a good fit to work together. Then what I do in Soul Speakers Academy, or I do work one-on-one with clients too that want a lot more individualized help. And particularly if you have like a speech coming up, or you want to put together a masterclass like this, or a free challenge, or a video opt-in, or a TED talk, whatever the case might be, that's a really good fit for one-on-one, where Soul Speakers Academy is working on the speeches and really getting the practice down so you can speak from this flow state readily across your own channels. But what I teach there in the last two S's are structure and style. So structure is, how do you actually structure a speech like this? A little bit ago, I said I would share how I did this one, and it was really kind of like a 4x4, 4x3 method. So, right, I had my 4 ways of mindset, stretching your limits, making that pre-speaking ritual, and having a meditation and like visualization practice in place are the ways you'll be able to tap into flow state on the stage. And within each one of those, I had 3 to 4 points, right? And figuring out what framework is going to work with your coaching style and with the content that you teach, or with the transformation that you provide and the stories that you have from your life, is really what I'm gifted at. And so many of my clients speak about how disorganized they felt before they worked with me, and how I really help them organize and tighten up their message so they can show up effortlessly and know that they'll be able to convert audience members into paying clients, because what they're saying makes sense, right? Because they have some organization behind it, and their audience is able to walk away knowing what it is that they can help them with, what their services are, and what their story is, right? Again, building that know, like, and trust factor. Um, so if all of that sounds good, if you're like, yes, I want to work more on tapping in and speaking from this flow space state, speaking with my soul, I need to have a business strategy with speaking in place, I need help structuring. And then, of course, the last part, style, I almost forgot to talk about it. I equally love it. And it's all about showing off your personality and your style and like your charisma while you're speaking, right? Which is something that we all need help with from time to again. Like, what do you do with your hands? Should they be flying all over the place? It's definitely why I say I'm not like the best speaker, because there's always little things in myself that I want to fix. How do you stop saying so much, right? How do you not say so much? Because I say so a lot. You'll realize it now. All of these things are things that we talk about in the style component. And we talk a lot about style in both Soul Speakers Academy, or if you choose to work with me one-on-one. So I wanted to let you know that at the end and provide this conclusion before we go into the meditation, because after the meditation, you're going to be a little like zenned out and ready to keep free writing, because at the end, I'll encourage you to keep writing about your experience. And so this meditation is really all about a way of opening up your throat chakra. So real quick, if you've got your 2 fingers, you want to put them, I think it's called like the Zelify process. I'm really messing that up. It's something with an X. It would be a great Scrabble word. But that little notch between your collarbones, if you put 2 fingers there while you're speaking, not only will you feel the vibration of your voice, you can also feel your heartbeat. So it's a really cool like spot in the body. And it's also where our throat chakra is, and where I'm going to have you focus your attention during the meditation. So if you're ready, let's start to loosen up and do maybe a neck roll or 2. Maybe swing it to the right, swing it to the left. Start to loosen up. Got hair in my face. Roll your shoulders back. And all together, we'll close our eyes and take a deep breath in. Release through your mouth. Let's do 2 more. Inhale. And 1 more. So with your eyes closed, Begin to easily imagine these scenes while you continue to breathe in slowly and calmly. See yourself relaxing by a beautiful, calm lake. The breeze softly blows over the lake, and you watch the thousands of tiny ripples it creates on the surface of the lake. Imagine that each of those ripples is a ripple that you create in the world as you speak your truth. See each ripple as a person. Your surroundings here are so calm and pleasant that it brings a feeling of complete peace that washes over your entire body and mind. Breathe in deeply and allow the peace to fill you up. Breathe in again, imagining and feeling the inspiration fill you up. Breathe in one more time and fill yourself up with confidence. Begin to notice the birds singing in the trees, softly chirping and singing songs of their simple happiness. Begin to go look for the birds and wander into the trees by the lake. You see a small circular clearing with beautiful wildflowers and grass. Slowly walk to the middle of the clearing and feel the grass on your toes. It's so lush. So sit down in the middle of the clearing, in the middle of the circle, and feel the sun on your face. Take a deep breath in and out. Take the time now to release any worries, any disturbing thoughts or insecurities you have or may be feeling. Let those feelings float up and out and away, floating far, far away. Whatever's happened today that's bothered you, it's all time to let that go. Know that you're in control of your mind and your body. You can choose to allow these bothersome emotions to leave. In doing so, you'll free up space in your heart and your mind for positive things to come. So take 3 more breaths in and out at your own rhythm. Know that you are safe. Know that no harm can come to you in this circle. Begin to feel a small blue flame right at the center of your throat chakra, between your collarbones, at the base of your throat, where your voice vibrates and your heart beats. As you inhale, imagine the flame growing now to be within your whole throat. On the exhale, imagine the flame expanding even more. And inhale and expand the flame down to your heart. Let your truth be both in your heart and in your throat. Inhale, and now exhale and grow the flame up to your third eye, that point between your 2 eyes and your eyebrow. Feel the blue flame there, connecting, helping you find that connection from your heart and your third eye, so you know that you can speak with your soul. On the next exhale, start to expand the flame even more with every exhale. It's expanding, it's dropping down further and further until it's going down through your sits bones and out through the top of your head. And soon your whole body is encased in this blue flame. Feel the power and confidence that comes from its truth, the confidence that it gives you, knowing that you are safe. And now on the next exhale, start to spread the fire from yourself. With each breath, the flame's going to extend from yourself to fill the circle and the clearing of the forest. Take it so you're sitting in the middle of a beautiful blue bonfire. Feel the confidence as its warmth. Within this blue ring of fire, you are not your body. You are free. You are powerful beyond measure. You are creative. You are peaceful. You are confident. You are supported. You are loved. You are now safe to speak your truth. You are here in this moment to have your voice heard. You are here to share your truth with others. Begin to speak either verbally or in your mind's eye the truth that you are here to share. What do you know in this moment is true beyond measure? What can you share to expand happiness within yourself and others? Speak your truth now. When you're finished, stay in the ring of blue flames. Know that you can return to this place whenever you need. It's within you. Now take a deep breath. Allow good feelings to fill up your heart, your mind, and exhale peacefulness and calm all around you. Take one more deep breath and release. When you're ready, open your eyes and pick up your journal and write about what you just experienced. Write down what you said, what you saw, what you felt. Be as descriptive as you can be. Document your truth. And know that you can take those blue flames with you wherever you go and wherever you speak to protect you and keep you safe so you can speak the truth and speak the message that you're here to share. So my intention is that you'll find great value in this practice because it's my way of reminding you of who you are. So feel free to return back to it, to make it your own, to visualize growing and speaking from your throat chakra. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much, and keep writing, keep speaking, and keep changing the world one speech at a time.